Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of my podcast. As you might have noticed, the podcast is taking slightly different direction, or rather, I am expanding the topics and discussions that are arising in the show. So instead of Max Talks AI, now the podcast is going to be big fan of human race, and I think that really suits my personality, and that really suits the direction that I want to take this show. So I'm always going to be talking about AI, I'm always going to be talking about technology, but I feel that this could not be discussed in a silo, and I think I'm going to bring you more value by bringing in people from politics, economics, and various other disciplines, and trying to extract value and opinions from them. So this podcast is now Big Fan of Human Race Podcast. I hope you like this name. I ran this by a few of my friends and they seem to be really liking it. So this is the name now. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen, but you will be missing out. So today's guest is Lasse Rouhiainen, and he's a best-selling author and international expert on artificial intelligence, disruptive technologies, and digital marketing. He is Finnish by origin, but he's based in Spain and focuses his work on investigating how companies and society in general can better adapt to and benefit from artificial intelligence. Lasse is a TEDx speaker and works with a bunch of top brands such as Michelin and the European Union Intellectual Property Office. In order to get the best flavor of his work, I suggest that you check out his latest book called Artificial Intelligence: 101 Things You Must Know Today About Our Future, and it's translated into several other languages as we speak. A good idea is to go to his website, lasserouhiainen.com, and download a free PDF of the book if you don't have the money or you can't be bothered to wait for it. It's a nice little book, and it's a good summary of various things that AI brings into our society and the way we do business, commerce, and life in general. In the episode, we talk about privacy, we talk about the future of education, we talk about the potential for automation of jobs and what kids must think about going into the job market. We talk about Finland and a whole bunch of other things. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope that you pick up something new from it, and also hope that you are excited about the direction that this podcast is taking. I promise it is going to be an exciting journey, and it's going to be massively, massively interesting for me to share these conversations with you. So without further ado, please enjoy the episode. Today I'm joined by Lasse Rouhiainen. Hi, Lasse.
Hi, Max, and thanks for inviting me here.
No problem. I was a bit anxious about pronouncing your surname. Did I do a decent job, or did I completely flop it?
You did quite good job.
All right, cool. So I know that your day's going good so far, your week's going good so far, and I would like to start this interview with a question not about artificial intelligence, but about privacy, because this is what's been on my mind kind of this morning, and I know that you know quite a bit about the subject and you are very opinionated in this area. So if we could kind of have your quick take on privacy and where do you think it's going now on a very macro level?
Okay, so that's quite big topic, and I always think things about comparing like three different areas, and that's Asia, Europe, and the US.
Okay, great.
And as we are recording this in Europe, I would say Europe is the continent that most is considering these things, and historically Europe has always been kind of like thinking more about, let's say, the human side of things when it comes to business and things like that. And when it comes to privacy, Europe is, let's say, taking the most critical stand. There's now the new privacy regulation in the in the EU. But I would say it's maybe too tough even. But in general, if we consider it normally, traditionally, the way companies in America who are using AI, the way they have been operating, and this is a good example, let's say Facebook and Google, they normally think that let's build something that, number one, needs to make money for our shareholders, because that's the number one goal. And then if something happens, let's like try to fix it as we go. Whereas the European companies are thinking like, let's make money to our shareholders, but let's try to think also, is this good for like human beings and consumers and so on. A good example of this is that When it comes to privacy, I think Facebook is a good example. There's a lot of young people and all people of all ages. They are sharing all kinds of photos of their children and everything on Facebook, and basically they didn't know that Facebook is being used and leveraged. And I would say the private information has been abused, for example, for Brexit election and also for the last US election, because AI was being used there in, let's say, in the negative way. So going back to your question, I think it's one of the most difficult questions right now, because AI will help us, or artificial intelligence will help us to do so many interesting things, but at the same time we have to consider where is the limit and how we are using AI. But I would suggest that, for example, many big companies, they would consider more how to be proactive, how to see these things before they happen. And I also, as I mentioned many times, for example, good example is Facebook. They are never proactive. They're always reactive, meaning they first think about their shareholders. When something bad happens, like the Cambridge Analytica thing, then they say, oh, we are sorry. And then they're reactive and say, oh, that will never happen again. And when the bad things have already happened. So that's how I see it. Then we have China and Asia. It's really interesting how China is using AI. They will be the AI superpower. And at the same time, we have to think: is it good for the Chinese government, or is it also good for the Chinese people who live there? So many Chinese people have said to me that their life have got better, but at the same time, there's a lot of privacy issues. Like, for example, in the schools, they already use like facial recognition software to see the facial expressions of the child as they are learning, in order to make this learning more powerful and effective. And then the question comes, if somebody will hack those servers where all that information is, and have that private information shared and abused, that's not really good. So yeah, it's interesting, but I would say maybe Europe here is like thinking how we could have good use of AI, while at the same time thinking these important things like privacy.
Do you think that's very interesting, by the way, the three-way split? I like it. It kind of structures thoughts in your mind. But I'm just thinking about what you said with Europe's place in this whole game. So to me, just looking at the AI investment, right, in pure cash terms, it seems like, looking at the numbers, Europe is in no position to compete with US and China, period. Really, maybe in the consumer base, maybe in the market size, but not in the investments in artificial intelligence. It's just not in that spot economically. So it almost feels like maybe part of it is historical, maybe part of it is culture, but to me it almost feels like Europe was pushed into some sort of niche where it can actually lead, and that turned out to be privacy and culture. Do you ever have those kind of considerations?
Sure, and that's totally correct what you say there. So traditionally, everything which is like startup funding has been, US and China has been leading in that. And right now there's like, even like you could say there's like an arm race of AI happening between US and China, seeing who is better. Obviously China will be much better because they have like a long-term view, whereas US is changing the administration maybe every 4 years and so on. But yeah, but the problem here again is that it's not all about money. So many times in the media also there's like news that, hey, now US is the best in AI because they are spending most money. But money is not like why we are living here. Like, it's part of it.
Yeah.
But we also have to think like how we can use AI in many, many different ways. So for example, one, and you are right here, European Union is behind. But then again, I hope that there will be a lot of innovations, and I'm quite sure there will be a lot of good AI innovations in the EU that can be later exported to different parts of the world. And for example, European Union has set up this kind of council for good use of AI. There's a Finnish businessman who is leading that. And one of the main priorities they are thinking is this ethical use of AI. And I think it's now like important thing, because also when I teach in different universities and so on, and when I talk with young people, it's interesting. Some of them are really angry of AI, when you would think that they would be excited of AI. But some of them are really angry, and they say, oh, this is again like something that the big companies are kind of like using against us, or something like that. So I can see that there's kind of like this kind of backlash also, if everything is measured in terms of money. But yeah, back to your question, for sure, like US and China are leading in this. But my suggestion for all big companies is that, like in the future, like there should be other measurements, not only money. And because then if it's only money, it's really fast that AI will be used for some unethical manner.
On this point, you mentioned China and their amazing really progress in facial recognition. It almost seems as there was this theory with war-driven innovation. So it's something that starts with kind of an evil and potentially, I mean, arguably negative intent. Like, here we would say that surveillance of your citizens for, purposes such as insurance compensation and things of that nature is not the best thing to do with the population, right? But on the flip side, the progress in facial recognition has been quite amazing, and then other industries with perhaps more positive intent can benefit from that. What is your view on sort of this process of AI innovation and progress, where it kind of goes through this negative intent in the beginning, and then that spills over into more neutral and positive uses?
Right. So that's again a good question. So it's kind of like the main thing here is that everybody should be talking about these things, and that means like the normal consumers and citizens of every country. That's one of the things I also highlight in my book, because the problem is that in the next election you should be voting politicians who know where AI is right now and how it will affect everything. So that, because those politicians next year or 2 years from now will make decisions that will affect countries. And if they have no idea of AI, then it's not really good situation. But it's exactly like you said. For example, Amazon has been, and maybe I think Google has been selling, specifically Amazon has been selling the facial recognition software to US Army, because the Army is always the first one to apply these things. And actually it's interesting, if we go back, I think the internet started thanks to Army. The US Army needed to communicate better and so on. So yeah, that's how would I say, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Then again, like you mentioned, facial recognition in China has a lot of good benefits. For example, tourism is already using it. There's many hotels like Marriott Hotel in China, I think it's in Beijing, where they already use facial recognition in checking. And I would personally use it because I hate waiting in line, many minutes just because somebody's typing something on the computer. When you have facial recognition in a checking process, you just walk in and that's it. And the same in the airports, it will increase the security, and it has many of these positive things. But then we go back to what happens when government is like it's kind of like controlling everything, so they know where you go, where you are intended to go, and if you do something bad, if you say something bad against the government, then they can like put you off the system. So that again is dangerous, and the problem here, or the challenge, is that world is coming towards us faster we can like adapt. And that's why all the politicians should have like basic AI course, I would say. And that's, for example, the UK government has had some kind of good AI sessions that I have seen on YouTube. Finland, which is my home or country where I was born, they have, for example, this thing that every minister in Finland has to do an AI course, which is really good. But more importantly, every politician should understand these things because they will make decisions really, really soon, and those decisions will define how our world will work in the next few years. So I don't know. It's quite there's quite many moving parts, and it's something that should be taking more into consideration.
Got it. Yeah, I agree. Actually, with the UK, there is a House of Lords Artificial Intelligence Committee. And I actually spoke to a few members of Parliament who are members of that committee. So it's quite interesting. But I think on the flip side, they always say that there is almost a selection bias in there. So the already more techie parliamentarians go into that committee, and then the other parts of House of Lords and House of Commons, nothing really changes as much there. So he was like, it's almost as if we create this bubble in our committee where we actually understand what's going on, and then the rest of the parliament is kind of oblivious. But just to dig into, Lasse, what you said about waiting in line, and the fact that you hate waiting, by the way, in the UK, I don't think you would enjoy the life too much, because it's all about waiting in different settings. But just my question about privacy, because the way I see it and the way kind of every privacy conversation goes for me is that in the end it's a trade-off between time and privacy, right? So that, and it's a similar thing with Amazon, with so many other things. It almost seems that it's a question of where is the barrier, where is the stopping point of, we say, okay, this trade-off of time for privacy is now going a bit too far. But it seems to me that more and more so we are conscious about saving time for whatever reason, and we are ready to give up bit by bit our privacy, to get that 1 extra minute, 2 extra minutes, so that we're ready to accept the terms and conditions or to scan our face just to have this tiny time edge. Do you see that happening, and what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, that's right. But again, I see it happening, but at the same time, many civil organizations are becoming, there's a backlash, so they are becoming to say that that's not good and we should not have that, and so on. Just to give you example, one of my friend lives in Dubai, and she said that she has 2 children who are playing in the urbanization, and over there they decided that, hey, now we need this self-driving car who is driving here, but at the same time in that area there were kids playing. So again, that's a good thing to think, that should we have that new technology in that area and so on, and it was kind of thing that they were debating, is it good or is it bad? But and at the end of the day they decided not to have the self-driving car over there with the kids. But yeah, at the end it's something that's coming here quickly. I would think that one solution would be to use somehow blockchain technology that would, I don't know how to say technically, but basically it would help to have everybody, for example, in a healthcare system, but in a way where you could not easily hack the system and so on. So one of the reasons why I like blockchain technology is that everything will be distributed, and there's not one database that somebody can hack and then do bad things. But when it's a distributed database, it's better. So I think many of the things we will need in the future, like healthcare and education and all kinds of records of citizens, would work in blockchain and with AI, combination of blockchain and AI. But at the same time, I have to say that it's difficult technology to develop. There's a lot of companies working on it, and it will still take probably a few years until we have it. But yeah, that's important, because in the future everything will be on cloud, our health records, our financial records, everything. So we become really vulnerable if somebody will hack those things. And that's why I think blockchain technology could help there.
Yeah, that is very true. I was actually looking at some of the cyber attacks statistics, and it's absolutely mental. I think average large organization, according to IBM, deals with 200,000 cyber attacks a day, or cyber threats a day, and the vast majority of cyber attacks, successful or unsuccessful, are never actually discovered. So that doesn't even go into the statistics. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. Actually, one thing I want to talk about, and that's digressing a bit, is Finland. When did you move to Spain? Was it, and how is the? Because I think the tech scene is in Finland, Estonia is pretty interesting. I mean, I think Estonia is leading the way in the Baltic region, but I keep reading and hearing about Finland doing some amazing reforms in higher education that are related to technology. So if you could kind of talk about that and what do you think about what's going on in your home country?
Sure, I'm happy to. So I moved. I've been also living in Mexico and Italy, and I was doing my career in Finland, and then I moved to Spain around 15 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And in the last years, I have been giving courses in the university called Haga-Helia University
Mm-hmm.
about digital marketing and social media. And now also, I also mention to every student that they should study AI as much as they can on their free time. But yeah, Finland has always been kind of like a leader in education, and one of the reasons is that the public spending or the governmental spending is higher in terms of percentage in education than in many other countries, and teachers are more valued than in many other countries. And also, right now, Finland, I would say, when it comes to AI and its application, is doing good work. I hope they will continue. It's not perfect work, but interestingly, for example, Finnish government has already issued many reports about AI, and one of their their focus is that we should quickly re-educate a lot of the working people, and I think that's a really positive thing. I think that's the only way to go, I would say. And in the last report, they say that 40% of the working population should be re-educated. So how that would work is that they suggest doing short courses, meaning like 3 month to 4 month courses about, hey, there's these new skills that you will need in this new AI era so that you will find a new job or have better job and so on. And I think that's a really interesting way, rather than saying that, hey, you need to go to the traditional university and study 4 year career or something like that, which is something most people cannot do because they're so busy with the ordinary with their own life. So that's one of the things Finland is doing, but also I would say Finland is working in many ways. There's also a lot of innovation when it comes to health and the use of AI in healthcare. You mentioned Estonia. I also
Mm-hmm.
recommend everybody to follow Estonia. I think it's really interesting what they are doing in many levels and areas. They have been, for example, having elections on blockchain, which is really interesting. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how much they are applying AI. I think Finland is still like a leader there, but yeah, kind of like if we go back to that analogy before between different areas like China and so on. For example, China is will be probably like the number one country to investigate AI and to find more amazing new things about AI and new companies and this and that and the other. But then, for example, smaller countries like Finland have a possibility to implement AI in different areas of life, and that's what Finnish government has been doing, and I hope the next government will continue that work. And also they are highlighting this work that we really need to quickly educate people about AI and its possibilities, because right now there's a lot of people who the only thing they know about AI is what they have learned from Hollywood movies, and what you learn from there is that it's always like something bad, like Terminator who is killing human beings, and we have nothing to do, and that's not really good thing. So that's why also a lot of people are afraid of AI and are against AI.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And what about the more conventional higher education reforms? With I read, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was something along the lines of, instead of actually teaching these subjects like maths, physics, and things of that nature separately, what they're going to be teaching are concepts that combine those.
Yeah,
Right? Is it
exactly. Yeah. So one of the things Finland has always been doing is these experimentations, and this is really good today because that's what people need. For example, here in Spain, in public universities, it's really difficult and it's really traditional way. So in Finland, for example, in this Haaga-Helia universities, I've been following many teachers, and it's really interesting because there's no like, how would I say, there's no like course that hey, there's a course of logistics and this the course about marketing and this is about this. It's more like projects where companies participate and you do like a project for a company, and in that project you combine 4 different things and so on. So it's as tied to the working life as it can, and you are kind of like mixing of these different things. So it's kind of like modules and so on. And I think that's extremely good for students because in the future their working life will be like that. It's not, you cannot like study only one thing and expect to have amazing future. But the more you combine, the better. And
That's
then
true.
one thing that Finland is also in the universities applying is this thing that there's like several teachers, whereas in Southern Europe there's traditionally in the traditional universities, not in the public universities who are innovating, but in the traditional universities, there's like one lecturer in front of 100 people and of students, and the main thing is to memorize things what that one lecturer says. So obviously this method is something that worked in the 70s or 80s, and nowadays it's not that good. So in Finland they have like several teachers for every class or every project, which is also good because then you get feedback from different people and you learn from different teachers. But also lately the main thing has been personalization of the teaching, and I think that's also quite amazing. They just made like a new reform and in like elementary level where they kind of like analyze every student and make the idea is to make every student learn better thanks to this personalization. And I was just reading yesterday that somebody made like a study and prediction that 10 years from now, thanks to different AI tools, we can use like AI tutors who can help tremendously in this personalization. Even saying that in the future there will be not like children will be not like like in the first grade or second grade or third grade, but they will be organized according to what they learn and where they are in different subjects, and and obviously AI tutors will help a lot here. Also, they will help the student, but also they will help the teacher. So I think that's interesting. One more thing I wanted to, I also actually I'm just writing an article about using like teaching robots. So there's a company based in Finland, and they have this robot called Elisa. Oh, sorry, I think it's Alias. I will find the name and say in a bit.
That's fine. I can link it up.
Yeah, and basically, so what that teaching robot is doing is helping with repetitive things, which normally start to become boring for human teachers. And in this case, it's language learning. So it's really interesting. This robot, you can learn English using this robot, and you can say one word badly, like 100 times if you want. It never gets tired. And also this, they say that this gives like a safe learning environment for every child, which I think is a big thing, because normally how it was like traditionally, everybody was reading out loud like English or whatever language, and if you made mistakes, then others were laughing. So those kind of things you will not have in this situation. Plus, that small robot can also dance and make some fun. So it also keeps like students engaged and makes the learning process fun, which is quite important. So that students are kind of like learning without noticing it and so on. So yeah, that's one thing I really think can help in this kind of elementary learning, where we would use robots ethically and safely in some specific repetitive things. So the name of the robot is Elias. I can give the link later.
Okay, great. This is very interesting. I have a little sister, so I'm really watching the education space, and a lot of the times I'm quite frustrated with how she actually spends those 8 hours a day that she's never gonna get back. But yeah, that's a whole another topic. So Lasse, just wondering about then, we've talked about higher education, and then you hinted the importance of AI education, not only as an enabler of education, but actually directly learning about artificial intelligence and learning about technology. Is this and then you mentioned that this is almost a prerequisite, right, to a successful career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just, I know that you're quite big on the idea of automation, and you urge and implore people to actually get educated on artificial intelligence, get retrained, so that they don't kind of miss out and become worse off in the age of AI based jobs. Could you just speak on sort of on the macro level what you think of this?
Sure. So, like I said before, problem or the good thing about AI is that it will help many processes to get better, cheaper, and faster, and it will make many things better in our lives, like healthcare and education and so on. But the bad thing about AI is that it's coming faster, that we can prepare for it, and most people don't understand maybe its importance. So for that reason, people are kind of like continuing the things they have been doing always, and they are not like reserving a few hours every week to understand what's happening like in the next 6 months or next year or next 3 years. And for that reason, it's so crucial that educational institutions and even governments and regional governments would start promoting and creating education about like how AI will change things. Because let's say, for example, self-driving cars, I still think it will take like sometime like 7 years that we will really see them or something like that. But once they come here, they will never go back. It's not like that we could say, hey, let's send the self-driving cars back and let's get the human drivers. No, it's like once they come, we only can adapt. We cannot do anything else. And for that reason, everybody should start understanding how, like I said, like before, not like how to code AI, but how AI is changing the world. And maybe another example is like supermarkets and stores. There's already, where I live in Spain, there's already a lot of like these that you can pay yourself, like these machines. And soon enough, thanks to computer vision, there will be, it will be all over the place. So a lot of people who work like a cashier in stores, they will need to find new jobs. And this is, for example, like it's coming. Like everybody who's cashier, who's listening to this, or you have families or friends, you should already start learning new things and thinking what would be an interesting hobby or business or something, because they are coming really, really fast. So for this reason, all this is like something that we should all take really, really seriously. And one good example of this is, for example, in China, government has already issued like a textbook for high school. I think it's high school or elementary. I think it's high school students about AI and how it's changing the future. So in this book that everybody has to read in high school, they will learn that, hey, this is how facial recognition works, and this is how it will change things. So maybe 4 years from now, these things will work thanks to facial recognition. And this is how self-driving cars will work, and this is how automation will work. So this will help Chinese students to be more prepared for the future, and then do many great things and innovations, and even start new businesses and projects and so on. So that's a good example. And if we don't do it, what will happen is that there will be a lot of angry people. First, because there will be like announcements that, hey, like in next 3 months, we will use machines and we will not need your contribution and you will lose your job. But not only they will lose their livelihood and the money they are earning every month, but they will also lose like the meaning of life, and many of their social contacts, which is again something that many Silicon Valley experts never mention. They only say that, hey, it doesn't matter, like in every technological revolution, there has been innovations and then people have found new jobs, and so on. But this time it's much bigger, and it's happening much faster, and I don't see any other solutions than widespread education in many levels to these things, because at the end of the day, I think like AI will, like I said, will help us tremendously. But at the same time, for those people who are not following what's happening in the future, it will be tough, and if we don't prepare, we will also have a lot of social unrest, like really big manifestations, and a lot of people, on the streets. And right now we still have time to avoid all those things.